Hey, Lifeguard Leroy here, back with another Valhallan Ice Warriors video. Today I'll be talking about, this will be an after action report of our game on the weekend. Me and Jimmy were playing a 2v2 tournament with I was playing my Valhallan Ice Warriors, of course, and he was playing his Steel Legion, 1,000 points each. We both had fairly balanced lists, and we ended up taking, two wins out of 3 games, and the last game was fairly close, but I'll talk about that later. But let's get into it. The lists were, I was mostly infantry. I think I took, with the Valhallans, it was the 2 Valkyries. So the reason I've got the Valkyrie in the booth today, or the new light booth, that so I need to figure out better lighting for this. This was probably the MVP of the day, I'd say. So a little bit of spoilers ahead for each game, but so yeah, I took 2 Valkyries. Oh, was it like 9 heavy weapons team? 9 las cannon teams, 6 mortar teams, 3. I think it was 3 10-man squads, and yeah, what was the last squad? So we took 2 chimeras with 2 10-man squads with 2 las cannons. So we had heaps of las cannons. Plus he had las cannons on. Yeah, it took 3 Lumen Rust tanks. One was a commander, tank commander with a demolisher. One was a what was it? Executioner. Yeah, I'll talk more about the execution because that was kind of useful. It was kind of a distraction. It was kind of worked out better than say taking 3 tank commanders with like demolisher cannons. But I'll talk more about that later in the video. So yeah, we had overall it was a pretty fun day. I mean, first time doing an event in 9th edition. I mean, most of the players were fairly sporting. One was a bit, whatever, and it was getting towards the end of the day. I won't go too much into it, but it did affect gameplay at the end, where you kept trying to rush, but like it's like, yeah, we were trying to slow it down, we were trying to speed it up, and it's just like, it's kind of an awkward moment, but whatever. Most of the day was pretty, like, fairly calm and pretty chill games. We had game 1 was we were versing Drakari plus Chaos player. So I was actually expecting a double Drakari team, but I guess they just didn't have the armies, so yeah, we ended up versing. For some reason he wanted to play Chaos, but yeah, because I don't know, maybe it was just the new flavor of the month for him. Our second game was versus it was kind of a weird combination, like Blood Angels versus Orcs, but I think it was mostly because they are fairly casual gamers, and it was their first event for those 2 players, I believe. So they were just going with probably the first 2 armies that they had at the time or whatever, or they might have just got back into the hobby. And then the third game was Dark Angels versus Death Guard. I mean, to be expected. At the end of the day, you're going to verse the more competitive players, and they're going to be the ones that give you more of a trouble, more of second guessing, more game, was sort of making you think harder towards the end. And they were taking a double Terminator list, Terminator spam with Dark Angels, with Deathwing Dark Angels, and Death Guard. So it was kind of a you expect the toughest at the end, but at the same time it was like, yeah, okay, it was like, yeah. Anyway, let's get into the actual games. Turn 1, game 1, Drakari. Like I said, we were expecting double Drakari, fully painted armies. We technically would have won. So basically, he didn't paint one of his flyer, so that automatically got us 10 points. But we still technically would have won by, I think it was like 1 or 2 points, due to we were taking, engage in all fronts and cut off the head. And cut off the head, when you're on a time limit, cut off the head is actually potentially one of the better. It's much better than Assassinate, I reckon. And yeah, you just basically focus their leader, and it kind of worked for the first 2 games because we took that for both game 1 and 2. So yeah, we had really decent deployment on game 1, and it showed because we were deploying against say we were expecting to be double Drakari, and we were deploying against what we thought was that, so we were using that game plan, and it just ended up being Chaos. So the Chaos was a little bit easier because he just took a bunch of Obliterators, and they're so RNG that like sometimes they do a lot, sometimes they do nothing, and it was kind of, I think he didn't roll too bad with them on the first phase of shooting, but the second turn of shooting, I think it was slightly less, and he was losing a lot more of than expected. I think the main reason I lost that was because we went for cut off the head, and even though he had bikes and Void Raven, the Drakari player, moved out really quick, he got engaged on fronts on 3 quarters, whereas we have engagement on fronts of 4 quarters because of constantly. This will be a theme, and this is the reason why the the Valkyries were such MVPs, because they were going for 4 quarters to get that extra point per turn in the engagement on fronts, which paid off in the end in a lot of the games because we were constantly ahead in points, and just goes to show how strong these secondaries are actually in 9th edition. So yeah, what was that? Okay, yeah. So the reason we won the first game is he kind of went around the side with, I think he had his HQ and a Venom, and that Venom just overextended and got popped off by Jimmy's Lehman Russ tanks that just, I think Demolisher Cannon took it out. And then I finished off with maybe mortars, or like there was a couple of mortars around it. I definitely fired some mortars or las cannons into it. Like his HQ was just basically overextended. I was expecting Raider spam. It only had 1 Raider. So I mean, I guess it goes to show, it's like it was just probably he just had those models, you know. Some players are like that, and overall, I mean, I feel like that we deployed decently in the first round, or sorry, the first game. Did quite well. We yeah, they're good sport and stuff, and yeah, I think one was even an X Games Workshop employee from like way back. I may have even met him once before, but I don't even know. It would have been so long ago. So yeah, second game was I think the second game was actually closer in stratagem, even though it was their first game. They were good sports, and they were like, they really, for the first tournament they didn't do too bad, but I think it was because I think it was because their Orcs and Blood Angels don't have that great a synergy. Yes, they're both melee, but they didn't really synergize in a way where it was just like, oh, they're just moving up and attacking with both sides, or like flying around with his what he had. He had jump troops. The Blood Angels player had jump troops. He's just sort of went across the board to take out my ejecting. There was a special weapons teams ejected out. Then he tried to point those, but they got out with I think we used emergency disembark. It was touch and go, but because I had a Valkyrie on each corner. Once again, we got the secondary of engagement on fronts. And then we only just won because we pulled out cut off the head at the last turn. His apothecary was overexposed, and he had a group of assault intercessors surrounding him. But I was able to knock off like 2 or 3 on one side because he was bubble wrapping them, but he didn't have the intercessors in front of him. So I think it was either Jimmy's. Sorry, traffic outside. Even though it's midnight, there's still heaps of cars on this road. I think it was Jimmy. He knocked off a few of the. It was either. Sorry, I can't remember exactly which one, but one of us shot away at least 2 or 3 of the intercessors, the assault intercessors, and then I think I finished him off with the las cannons on his like one las cannon shot went through on his apothecary, and just sniped him out and got us that extra 10 points for cut off the head. Turn 2, and because these games are relatively short in 2-hour periods, it's not like we're playing particularly slow. It's just on average you only get 2 turns in 2 hours after deployment, and depending on the experience that, like, we had newer players and older players that were like would play at different speeds, and we were relatively. We played 3 practice games over the last month, so we're relatively quicker rolling with guard. But naturally, with guard, you want to play maybe a little bit slower, but it doesn't matter too much. So yeah, the second game was pretty fun. Yeah, they came back and what was the thing? Oh man, I keep losing my trail of thought. Anyway, yeah, so I wasn't expecting Gaz. What was it Gaz? They had the big orc model, and we thought we were going to lose because there's no way we could kill him in 2 turns. The big orc model Gaz, with the amount of wounds, because I think they take a minimum of like 4 wounds per turn or something, so you need at least 3 turns to kill him, and we were playing at a reasonable pace. We weren't rushing it. So yeah, we weren't able to kill Gaz, but that worked out. It still worked out in our favor because a Master Apothecary was a lot easier to take down. We just got that win, I reckon. But yeah, game 3 was a bit more of a pain because I only had about, let's say, I think I had like 1 hour sleep over the weekend. I think I was awake for like 48 hours with maybe 1 hour sleep in between, just because I don't know. I have insomnia and hyperinsomnia sometimes randomly. So yeah, well, end of the day, the game was alright. It just, one of the players was like, oh, they're just rushing me through things, and that's when I should have called him out and said, oh yeah, it's just like just at the start of the game we were offering, it was like, oh, we want to play 2 at a time, because even though technically doubles is like, there's no rules, like the doubles aren't exactly, I don't think they're well defined when you're playing 2v2s in 40k, so I think doubles are a bit more casual. But even still, like, where it's like, oh, one player could deploy, it's like you could do 2 aside, deploying 2 at a time, either side, to speed things up, which is more beneficial for the other player because they were playing a super slow Terminator army. And we're playing guard, and it was just like, we're just going to put everything on the field anyway. It's just going to take more time anyway. So ironically, we were actually trying to be more of a good sport, saying double deployment each side, just because it would sped things up for them. So obviously, they only had Death Stars, and they're not going to deploy anything besides in 2 blobs, and then we're just going to deploy in blobs anyway, or relatively on one side, but they don't affect it too much. It's more the fact that this was a super slow army that wanted to move fast. So yeah, we ended up just trying to bunker down. I believe the game type was battle lines. Sorry, the first 2 game types weren't. I mean, honestly, the game types are kind of forgettable in 9th, which the tournament pack, to be honest. We had diagonal deployment in the first game, which helped us out a lot. Then it was like just forget what was the game type. The one with the circle cut out in the center in the 20 and the tournament pack, and then I think the last one was battle lines. The other one was like outflank. But it didn't really. I think we had slightly more favorable deployments in the first and second game. First and third game. The second one didn't really matter too much. We got lucky with the win on the second game. So, but anyway, sorry. The third game was all about speed, and because we're playing 2-hour games, and it's just like the tournament organizer is like, oh yeah, we're gonna cut off. It's like, they didn't really cut off the game early because it was the last game of the night. They cut it off when it's like, oh yeah, finish that turn. But because they were like, oh, they rushed us to the 3rd turn, even though on average we only did 2 turns per game, it favored them more, and we ended up losing by just 10 points by them scratching through and grabbing, I believe, the extra, because they were able to go to turn 3, they got the extra points through. But even if, and we didn't finish our turn, it's kind of a bit scuffed because it's like, oh, we didn't finish, I'll get onto our turn 3. I think we may have counted up the points that we were on, but because we couldn't move, because we didn't have time to play out our turn 3, or we didn't have enough models left on the field at that point, because they kind of got wiped off towards the end of turn 2. We still had enough stuff, like engaging on fronts, because I think one of the Valkyries went down, maybe on the far corner. Definitely had 2 Valkyries on the other side, but anyway, it just goes to show, like, I mean, most of the players would like that, but I'll just say, I won't say which player, but it was like one of the players would like just trying to rush us through to get that, to get the win. And I'm just like, yeah, I get it with the competitiveness, but we were just there for fun. So it's like, yeah, it's like I'd rather be a sporting player and get 2 wins out of 3 than being, that kind of awkward, annoying player and getting 3 wins out of 3. I could have brought a more spammy list. Could have bought like, basically guardsman spam, I reckon. But we didn't. We just wanted to play lists that were fun, I guess. So yeah, and plus, Jimmy could have taken 3 tank commanders with the Steel Legion, which might have actually been a lot more. Yeah, that would have been a lot more deadly, I reckon. But the Executioner tank was probably his MVP. Well, it might be his MVP for a distraction, especially in the second game. The first and second game, they're just looking at the Executioner tank and like, oh, it's going to shred through the Drakari or the Orcs. So I think they put too many shots into the Drakari instead of going for his tank commander and going for like assassinate or cut off the head. I think their secondaries also didn't play much into it. The key to beating Drakari is just hope they don't bring double Drakari lists and hope they don't paint them, I guess. But like even then, you can still just tactically deploy well against them and you'll beat them. For Orcs and Blood Angels, it was just I think one of them was an inexperienced with tournaments, but he was an alright player. And yeah, I think at the end game we probably could have won if we took deploy scramblers instead of cut off the head, because naturally Death Stars, you can't kill the warlords because they were like embedded in the sort of Terminator Death Stars that you couldn't get any shots on the HQs. So we should have just taken deploy scramblers. I think we went too heavy on one side. I think if Jimmy split his chimeras and I maybe dropped special weapons team early, we could have done deploy scramblers and taking this 2 side points, because it was the it was battle lines. I think there's only 4 objectives on it, so you have to kind of take deploy scramblers on and take those the 2 objectives on the sides to get all 3 to get the full amount of points for deploy scramblers. I think you need all 3 points to actually even get points with deploy scramblers, but it still would have been better than taking cut off the head, because like we didn't get any points, and that's the exact amount of points we lost by. It was 10 points. So if we had deploy scramblers and maybe 1 or 2 things could have gone a little bit better, you probably would have come second out of the whole tournament, which isn't too bad. Like it was like 10 points off coming second, especially with our first event playing Valhallan in the Valhallans, which is like, it's pretty good. And I mean, obviously, if I took like Bulgrim spam or Silence, but then that's not really in the heart of the game of playing Valhallans for fun. It's like, but at the same time, there's still Valhallans are still fairly competitive, I'd say. It's just the base Valhallans. So yeah, what else was the? Yeah, so 7th out of 20 is not too bad. But yeah, I was going to talk about this after. I think I should resubscribe to Adobe Systems, make a better intro, do some more digital art, and try and improve my intros and outros a little bit better for the channel. I got a lot of stuff going on, so I'm not sure if I need to move house soon or whatnot, so that might affect content on the channel. If I'm here another 5-6 months, then I'll be able to produce a bunch more stuff. But if not, I'm considering switching over to Doom modding if I move or something, depending on the situation, of course. But I don't think the way the things are looking, it might be just sticking to this for a while. And also, I do want to branch out and do other content. I'm talking about other card games and such. Probably Magic Gathering content. What else could I do? Sorry, I'm not thinking about... And retro content. I'm more thinking about retro games and such. So subscribe, like, if you got this far, thanks for watching. and yeah, I should have some battle reports in the near future instead of just after action reports. So hopefully, yeah, and I want to be working on a big city fight board if I'm staying here, and everything's sorted for the next 4 or 5 months. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you all next time. Oh yeah, and if you want to help out, remember you can go over to my Twitch at Lifeguard Leroy, and I don't know, subscribe. And you can also chat with me in chat. Cheers.